Hi, this unit is by Megan Zink and Christine McGowan, and the focus is comparing fractions at the third grade level. We chose this topic because it's something that we want to teach more effectively. It's important, but our curriculums don't allot for a lot of time for practice and exposure. And we wanted to create more real world and concrete examples. Our goal is for our students to end this topic with an understanding of unit fractions and understand the function of both the numerator and denominator, and to be able to confidently compare fractions with like numerators and again with like denominators. Our learners are between the age of 8 and 9. They are the typical third grade students. Our classes have a combination of gifted students and students who are EL, have a 504 or an IEP. In second grade, they would have been able to identify halves, thirds, and fourths with varying levels of mastery. This was not a essential standard for second grade, so it really just depended on their homeroom teacher. The standards that our lesson focuses on is 3 NFA1, 3 NFA3, and 3 NFA2. Our two main objectives. One, given visual models of partition shapes and number lines, students will identify and label unit fractions by writing the correct fraction that represents one part of a whole, measured by a classroom quick check with a success criterion of at least 80% accuracy. Number two, given pairs of fractions with like denominators and like numerators, students will compare the fractions using symbols by completing a comparison chart and justifying answers with visuals of choice, as measured by an in-class quiz with a success criterion of at least 80% accuracy. Our teaching and learning strategies are of Brewer's Thinking Tool Strategy, 1993. To start with motivation, model evolution, formalization, and transfer. This relates to the cognitive learning theory. Transfer is what we are most eager to use with our third graders. We want students to be able to take what they learned and transfer their knowledge to real world scenarios and activities. The technologies that we'll use in this unit are SplashLearn. SplashLearn is a great online resource. There's a paid version for teachers, but there's also a free version, and we focus on the free version. Toy Theater also has lots of different apps. The apps that we'll focus on is fraction bars, fraction strips, and fraction circles. Mammoth Math has a fraction matching game that aligns wonderfully with our unit. And the Math Learning Center also has numerous apps. The ones that we will be utilizing for this unit is fractions and number lines. Advantages and values added. With these added technologies, it's easier for students to partition shapes correctly. At the third grade level, a lot of our students make very common mistakes of their spatial awareness. They don't have those gross motor skills, those fine motor skills to be able to partition those shapes equally, and that gives misconceptions when they're trying to find their own comparisons. With SplashLearn, we can assign lessons to students. So once they get on the computer, they have a specific to-do list. SplashLearn also collects data. Just collects it very quickly so we can see real-time data and we can see their progress quickly. This allows us to have fluid, flexible, and effective lesson planning for both whole group and small group interventions. And with the added benefit of technology, it allows for faster cleanup and faster transitions, and that gives us more time actually using the tools. Day-to-day outline. Number one is to motivate. We'll begin by activating students' curiosity and building off real-world situations that students find relatable. Students begin exploring fractions of a whole by dividing a chocolate bar into equal groups. They will rely on their natural instinct to share equally and fairly two fractional parts. They acknowledge that the whole number 1 is now smaller than 1, but also larger than 0. Students are then questioned, how do we record or talk about these numbers that are smaller than 1, but larger than 0? Students are then guided through a dividing and labeling exercise with strips of paper. During this, they'll make predictions and point out patterns. Day 2, model evolution. Students are going to work in pairs to represent fractions using toy theater fraction strips. They'll also use unit fractions with toy theater to make connections when comparing to one whole. Using toy theater fraction bars resources, they'll explore beyond unit fractions and recognize when and how the numerator changes. And the teacher will walk around to prompt with questions to deepen their understanding and encourage student exploration. While the teacher pulls students into small group instruction, the class will complete assigned Splash Learn assignments to practice. Day 3, formalization. Today, students are going to continue to represent fractions visually by exploring Math Learning Lab app number lines. This allows us to represent fractions on both a number line alongside fraction bars. Then, students will use the app individually to make comparisons between fractions with common denominators. After they have had time to use the app individually, they will gather into groups of 3 to share what they have learned. After sharing their insight with their group, they'll have more opportunity to continue making comparisons between fractions with common denominators. This will conclude with an exit ticket to assess current understanding and lead to small group interventions. Day 4. Students will use the same tech resources to compare fractions with visual models, but we will also compare fractions with common numerators instead. This will lead into a class discussion that clarifies the different functions of the numerator and the denominator in fraction. They will again complete an exit ticket at the end of this lesson. The predicted goal is that students with previous misconceptions have gained clarity and can apply their knowledge and resources to accurately compare all fractions. Day 5. This is our transfer day. We will reflect on our original thoughts about fractions and compare it with what we know now. Then students will be given a recipe with fractions of different ingredients, allowing transfer to knowledge to real-world situations. After comparing the fractions, students will work in groups of 3 to share their reasoning and discuss which ingredients were used the most in the recipe. Again, which ingredients were used the least. Finally, students will take a post-assessment individually in order to see how much they have learned over the course of the unit. The post-assessment is the same as the pre-assessment. This allows both students and teachers to make note of their growth. And moving on. Differentiation options are video tutorials on Splash Learn. Directions read aloud. This is something that is also offered on Splash Learn, so it allows differentiation and access to all learners regardless of their reading ability. Teachers can assign specific skills. If we are pulling for intervention for more direct need, then we can also assign those as they go back to work independently after small group. And we use this data for small group and to create tiered instruction. Our handouts are as followed. Pre and post test given prior to the unit and then again at the end. One of our quick checks that focuses on comparing fractions with the same denominator. Another quick check that will be used at the beginning of the unit to assess how they can identify unit fractions. And then the summative assessment is our recipe. This is our transfer activity where they're applying real-world situations, just like reading a recipe in a kitchen. And a student example would be as followed. Online digital content. We created a website. We created this website using Canva. Students can use this both at home and at school. It gives Brain Pop videos. Our schools do have a Brain Pop subscription, so these are easily accessible. Outlines the 3 objectives. Provides links for all of our resources. Gives students an overview of what handouts are expected to use. And that is an example. This can be helpful for both students and parents again. This is a place for students and parents to access materials and extra practice. This hub serves as a tool for teachers to keep everything organized and in one place. Conceptual categorization. We're using the SAMR model. This unit demonstrates the level of augmentation based on the SAMR model. This is the level as the technology enhances functionality in the classroom. When students complete tasks on SplashLearn, saving their progress and data, that's an example of technology improving functionality. Assessing student learning. We'll take a post-test assessment. Complete a recipe activity in order to transfer knowledge in a real-world example, and we use data, discussion, and reasoning to determine student growth. Effectiveness of units. We use the data to determine if students learned the content. Students complete a survey, and this gives students an opportunity to voice their opinion and share what they thought was valuable about the unit. Our references are as followed. Thank you for your time. Have a great evening.